Hi, you guys. Oh, this is an awesome, awesome session. I say that about all of them, though, don't I? This session in particular is about how hard it is to really fully recover. Like many of the clients I work with, this woman is having a very difficult time fully internalizing acceptance of her body after she's actually gained 60 plus pounds. And the fact that she's got a wedding coming up, that may be putting pressure on her to lose weight for pictures, lose weight because people in where she that saw her before in California hasn't seen her with the extra 60 pounds, etc. So every time she and I talk, she feels better. She has relief. It makes sense. She has clarity. But after a little bit, it goes away. And I understand that many of my clients have the same issues. Not everybody has this miraculous recovery. In fact, most people go in and out of recovery. And when you go out, it's the moment you feel, I have to fix my body. This is intolerable. I can't do this. Or on the anorexic side, I cannot gain weight. I cannot gain weight. Okay, there's both sides. Accepting that you are where you are and I cannot gain weight. So as we are discussing this, you'll hear that she's very much into the thin supremacy. She actually said, this isn't on this clip, there's 15 minutes that aren't on this video session where she had said to me, but I'm going to miss being pretty. I want to be able to go out and feel attractive in my clothes. And she said, and it's almost as if I want to be popular. It feels like I want to feel that I am popular. You know, this woman again is 50. But the emotional state of mind around body image clearly for her is adolescent emotionally. And to be able to experience life as the adult in an adolescent state of mind is very difficult. So because of this temporary freedom that she's had since we started working, she has this ease and confidence and the social relaxation, the ability to be herself. There's no pressure. And the moment she feels I have to go back into my thinness, or, oh, I miss the prettiness, that's the victim position, the issues come back. And she's starting to notice this. And, you know, many people feel that in themselves, this is impossible for me. Maybe I cannot figure this out. Maybe I'm the person in getting help here that can't do it. And that's just not true. Everybody can do it. It's just it's really a matter of the willingness to fail, the willingness to surrender, the willingness to be embarrassed, the willingness to, again, go into those emotions that we don't want. In her case, it's the willingness to not be pretty, because that's how her mind is speaking to her. You have to kind of go in that direction. Because logically, we all know that's totally a perceptual judgment, right? But to her, it's a real judgment because she doesn't question the beliefs that formulate the importance of attraction, right? And attractability, you know. So, enjoy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like we both have food issues, you know, so,
I gotta think about it, don't you? I mean, it's so easy to flip-flop from I'm a victim of my body. This body is keeping me from prettiness, from that positive feeling I have when I think I'm attractive. So I'll never have that feeling again of, you know, truly self-centeredism. And the ego of this is my beauty. This is my attractiveness, as if it's you, right? And on the reverse side of this, my ugliness, my unattractiveness, I'm not allowed to have fun because only when I'm feeling pretty and attractive can I have fun. So it's that, you know, it's hurting that if you accept the body right now. And then we're going to create a bunch of other problems that don't really exist. And even if they do exist, we're going to make them far worse than they really are. Like, oh, it's hard to move. Oh, I'm breathing hard.
Yeah.
Which all human beings feel that way at any size, right? So we're just going to distort it to make it seem worse than it really is. And then how do you feel when you feel those feelings about the body? How does it feel? What happens to this freedom and ease, right?
It just gets sucked out.
Right. So you can see where when you said to me when we first started this conversation, Robin, it's so fleeting. I feel this way when we talk and then it slowly goes away. Well, it's because you have those stories about your life. And so the recovery process, meaning permanent recovery, not this temporary pause from the crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only way to keep this permanently is for you to permanently kind of black out the thinness from existence. You've blacked it out for now until you bring it back, right? Poor me, life will suck because I don't have the lure of the, you know, I am hot and that's what makes my night fun. You know, the attachment to your attractiveness and the fun, as if the attractiveness is the center and core of your fun when you go out.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want that? Do you really want that to be what creates fun for you? Is that?
No, I don't.
Well, talk from your heart now, because you do, right? Sounds good to say, no, I don't.
Yeah.
Be truthful with yourself. That's what I want.
The thing is, I mean, like, when you say it that way, I don't identify it as that, but I understand what you're saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because that's what it is. And so you don't like to, it's like when you feel it, I could be wrong. I want you to feel this out.
Yeah.
And maybe you're going to have a better description. But it is absolutely very self-centered, as if the body's attractiveness is the heart and soul of where your fun comes from. That's why your feelings about it are as strong as they are if you don't have the thinness. Go back to what you said to me 10 minutes ago. How does it feel if you won't be you were not going to be, you said these feelings of fear come up. These feelings of like, I won't be pretty.
Right.
That fear. Okay, why does that fear exist? I want you to go into what you're afraid of losing. Would you agree that that feeling of attractiveness is like the battery pack in what you believe equates to fun? It's like taking the battery out of your fun social life.
Well, I guess to me it feels like I associate it with like being part of the club. I know this is ridiculous, but like,
no, I like that you're admitting it.
The childhood like acceptance into
I'm cool.
Yes.
Popular.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so I want you to feel accepted
and not rejected, and you know.
Tell me how that feels when you look in the mirror at your prettiness. That's what I'm talking about. Like, I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of people say, I don't care about what anybody else thinks. Right? But what you just described.
No, I care a lot about what other people
Yes, but it's really about what you think. Go a little lower. I mean, the reality is that you're presenting what you think is attractive.
Yeah.
Go into this because the reality is this, that you do care what other people think.
Right.
Okay, I understand that part. Oftentimes, though, do you really care when it comes to you going out in public? If someone doesn't like the dress you're wearing, if someone doesn't like your hair, if someone thinks you're ugly, do you really care about that person's opinion? Or is it your opinion of attractiveness you care more about?
Yeah, it's my opinion.
Okay, see, this is why it's so confusing. Because it is your opinion. You're the one holding yourself hostage. You're the one who is defining what is attractive in your mind.
Okay, yes. Yeah.
But it has everything to do with presenting it to the public. That's why it's like when people say to me, Robin, I don't give a shit what anybody thinks. It's what I think. Well, it's what you think based on what's socially attractive.
Exactly.
So it is you that's holding yourself to these standards. You're your biggest critic when it comes to these standards. You're the one who is religiously zealot. You're a zealot about it, meaning there's no lenience in it. Right now, you are giving yourself pause. So you don't have to hold yourself to those standards. Right now, you get to just go out and connect at the heart with people. Right now, you get to just enjoy yourself. You're not playing the part of the pretty girl. You're not playing the part of the hot clique. You're playing the part of I'm just enjoying my life. And how do you like it?
I do like that. I do like that.
Yeah, to just allow yourself to relax and really connect.
I don't have to be anything.
No, you can just connect at the heart with people, with your fiance, with the people you're with. It's very heart focused. It should feel very relaxed, very calm. There's no pretentiousness in it at all. And so what you're grieving is the pretentiousness. In the illusion, okay, go into this now, is that, I won't feel that way. There's a certain way you feel when you felt pretty. That is that superior sense of safety, but it's very superficial. So there's
powerful.
You got it, because of the symbolism. The power is in the symbolism. So compare the ease of realness that you're experiencing right now.
Mm-hmm.
It is heart-focused. It is humble. It isn't pretentious. It's really relaxed. It should feel natural. It should feel less controlled.
Yes.
Right? Now let's go back into the pretty cool girl role.
Right.
Who is hot and meeting these standards and is fixated on the perfect lip line of her makeup, which is part fun, right? Of playing, which you could still do that now, but the power you gave in it being real, like it's true, right? Even though it's unconsciously it's a game. You're playing dress up, right? But to you, it's so real that you believe you are superior and everybody's watching how hot she is. Look at her. This weird illusion of self, like I am now present and everybody's going to know. That requires control.
Right.
That requires that your breathing becomes a little more restrictive, but you're in this weird fantasy of grandeur. Mm-hmm. And you're actually willing to give up the freedom of heart-focused connection for that temporary high of superiority in your narcissism, which is all in your mind, right? Because in the moment of that thin, pretty girl who you think is getting all this, eyeballs are on me, right?
Yeah.
What are you getting out of that? What are you really getting out of that besides self-centeredness? This weird feeling of superiority, specialness, right? Don't you agree? That makes you feel but you're disconnected. You have to stay in a role. You can't just be.
Exactly. Yeah, that's definitely true.
So when you go through the recovery process, what you're realizing is, wow, I can feel that this is going to go away if I just make this permanent. That powerful euphoria I got in that role playing that I thought was real. And you can see now it's a lie. Can you see the difference between your current existence pausing that role? That role doesn't exist for you. That role doesn't have to be there. And the fact that you're like, oh, thank God, this is so much easier just to be me, just to be authentic and real and to connect with people without the pretentiousness, without all the rules and rigidity and the strictness. But without it, I don't get the grandeur of my narcissistic, like self-righteousness, that power, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to have to mourn and grieve that. That's an actual loss. You are losing the egoic, self-centered, self-righteous narcotic. You're getting high off of yourself. It's actually not even yourself. It's the image of what you believe you are perceived by others.
Right.
The high and the hedonic pleasure of the image and the role you're playing that is perceived as superior versus, which is super fake. It is a total complete lie. It is all facade, and it is a facade based on I am a superior human being. Versus, here's my reality. I don't have to care about what anybody thinks. I'm not concerned about any roles. I'm going to dress up, do my hair, and I'm going to focus on the conversation and the people, and I get to be myself, and I get to enjoy the food, and I don't have to create a facade around my health-righteous eating, which you end up having insane anxiety while you're out in public, right? Because you can't eat.
Right.
So would you agree that the illusion of that thinner, prettier role that you were playing, it's all in your head anyways, because go into the truth of that environment. How much relaxation and enjoyment did you really have? Did you really experience joy in that facade?
No,
or was it?
There was a lot of energy behind it.
That's what I meant. You're getting more out of the symbolism idea of it, but how was the actual experience in a social environment for you? Especially when that facade requires complete restriction from food.
Right.
So you've kind of taken that out of that picture, right? That requires that when you're out in public, how do you feel when there's food around and alcohol around? What happens?
Well, it's always on my mind, or trying to figure out what I'm going to be. How am I going to handle it? And
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. How am I going to handle it? That becomes, and then what happens do you ever feel in those environments? Have you ever felt disconnected because everybody else gets to relax and enjoy the food? They get to order from the menu, whatever they want.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then what happens if you say, screw it, I just want to enjoy myself right now? What happens when you eat something that you think is bad or fattening?
Well, then I feel guilty.
And then what happens?
And then I eat more.
And then what's the focus of that event? Is it even you and your superiorness, or is it the guilt and shame of failure? And now you've got the anxiety of having to fix it.
Yeah.
And now you're bloated because you've been starving yourself, so you're more likely to feel distended. So let's just go into that pretty role where you're feeling like, oh, that it'd just be so terrible. I'm afraid to lose that. You're losing the anxiety. You're losing the shame, the impulsiveness with the food. You get to lose that. You may lose the self-righteous level of perfection that you get off on.
Mm-hmm.
But it came at a real high cost. You really didn't enjoy yourself. It was all in your head. The enjoyment was all in your head. It didn't exist in reality. It was just the illusion that you were being worshipped by others' eyeballs, or you thought you were being seen as a unique, special person, right?
Yeah.
So do you really want that feeling to come from others based on body image and looks? Like that is what makes you special?
No, I don't.
So you have to reject it. That you will never hold yourself to such an extreme facade and lie, because it's a lie. You're not even being yourself. You're not even being real. It's like you're a mannequin That's what you're pretending. It's like a mannequin. It requires a mannequin type of personality, a mannequin type of food intake, a mannequin type of perfection and rigidity. So you're a mannequin in that fantasy. In reality, you're a mannequin. In the fantasy is some weird God focus of who you think you are to others in that moment. Like she's like an angel that walked in the room in her thin, perfect prettiness. So you have to be willing to lose that permanently.
Yeah.
So I want you to imagine that you will forever be allowed to just be real. You never again have to do that. How does that feel?
It feels like a relief. It feels like a relief.
Yeah, because it was a show. It was like being on performance.
Yeah.
I had to put on a show that I suffered in. Like I couldn't eat. I couldn't enjoy myself. I couldn't talk because I had anxiety all the time. You were probably so socially awkward. I wouldn't be surprised if you were socially awkward because you're in fight or flight in those moments because of the food. You know?
Well,
I would be.
It's actually though, but I mean, I think I was more out. Do you know what I mean? Because it was
that's in your head, I'm assuming. But as soon as the food became an issue, what happened to your being out? Was it outrageous? Did you become outrageous?
Yeah, no, the food. But the thing is, like, I felt like I was always overcompensating for something. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like because I was I can be very socially fun. You know? Mm-hmm. And funny. That's
the real you're talking about.
Yeah, but even like so. Yeah, it is true. It is true. When it got weird with the food, it would be awkward.
Okay, good. I'm glad that you just connected that. That's what I meant. I wouldn't be surprised that as soon as the food, all of this ease, like the fight or flight response shows up, anxiety shows up, and what happens to the ease of you being yourself? Poof. Brain doesn't function like that. Doesn't function in fear and fight or flight and ease and relaxation at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, when you just described, I'm kind of funny and I'm easygoing, you just described the way you've been since you put the thin, righteous halo persona on hold. You're describing how you've been able to be. Mm-hmm. You're not describing the way you are when you're thinner. That's an illusion. That's what you always thought thinnerness would bring you, the freedom to be yourself.
Yeah,
right. But that never happened. If you actually observe it, you're like, that. You're right, because I was putting on a show. And the show required, I starve myself. And every time I go out in public, there's food. So it's like, deer in a headlight.
Yeah.
So what you're grieving is this weird fantasy that being thinner allowed you to be yourself, which is not true at all. Actually, what you need to see is that accepting the body as it is right now without that going into reality instead of role playing, that living in reality free from the role playing has actually brought you more connection to your truth.
Yeah.
Because you've been free to just enjoy yourself. And to not have that fight or flight anxiety in a social environment. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you want to go back into thinness, what happens to this freedom?
It gets squelched.
Yeah, because you have to play the role. Mm-hmm. You know, the problem is you have an identity of who you think you are in your head of a thinner person with those freedoms.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, reality is that thinner person can't eat food, has to restrict, needs to be afraid of food, has to micromanage what you can and cannot eat, has to constantly be aware of what the body looks like. So there's a ton of work that thinner person has on their plate that makes it so that when they go out in reality, they can't even enjoy themselves. So it's a fantasy you're chasing or an illusion that you're chasing to think that when I'm thinner, I can be myself. because then I'm free from feeling criticized. But what's amazing is that the reality that you're living in, which is living in a body that is being criticized, is you just don't care right now. I don't care if I'm being criticized. Have you ever thought that maybe it's not caring about being criticized that is giving you this freedom? Right now, you do not care about being criticized because you're not going to do anything about it right now. You've suffered enough to the point where you're like, I'm done doing something about it. I can't afford to do that. So whether someone criticizes me or not, I just don't even care because I'm not going to do anything about it right now. So they can criticize all they want. I'm just going to protect myself from that insanity by giving myself this temporary pause from caring. So right now, you've been given a temporary pause from caring about that image. So you don't care what anybody thinks right now. But for some reason, you're holding on to wanting the image again, which means you have to care again. And what does that mean? You have to sacrifice for other people's caring about it. If you care what other people think, you have to go back into that cage and suffer. And guess who you're suffering for?
For my own vision of
what you think everybody will like.
Right.
Yeah. And so you suffer for them when you think about it. You're suffering for yourself. You're the one holding yourself to that image. You're the one holding yourself to the image. So you're in control of that. But you're doing this for caring about what people think. But for some reason right now, you don't give a shit what other people think. Right? So you get this freedom.
Right.
Right? So when you look at the permanence of never being thin again, what you're essentially saying is I permanently don't have to give a shit what anybody thinks. Permanently. I may never get this illusion of grandeur that occurred in my head, but I don't want it. You have to not want that grandeur that is all in your head, right? You have to never want that role again. It's like saying, I want to lose. I want to be a failure. I'd rather be a failure because right now you're okay being a failure with that identity, with that imagery. Wouldn't you agree? Right now you're okay being a failure to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right now. For the moment, you're okay being a failure to it because you need a break.
Yeah.
What if you get to be a failure and from that image permanently? Permanently. The question is, would you be okay with that? Even if others are not. What if other people aren't okay with the fact that you're not willing to starve for them to like you? What if they're pissed that you're not thin? And they think you should diet. You'd be so much happier if you were prettier.
Mm-hmm.
We would compliment you.
Oh, that's funny. That sounded like so shallow when you say it like that.
But that's the feelings that you want. You know, when you hear it mentally, you're like, this is like junior high. But emotionally, it feels like, I want them to compliment me. I'm willing to hurt myself. I'm willing to starve for that. It's like this, you've magnified how important it is in your head.
Yeah.
Which is why you've magnified how horrible it is right now to be this size. Even though, has it really been that bad? Has it really been that bad?
No, it's just I have to change my view about it. You know what I mean? I just have to.
Well, the only way to do that, don't you agree? That's the question is, how do I change my view about this? Well, the only way it's going to happen is if you make the thinnerness, you reject it. Yeah. Reject it forever, right? This is where it becomes real. You have to internalize that you're willing for this freedom to be a failure for the rest of your life. Because that's what it feels like to the image. I'm a failure. I would rather be a failure. And you have to feel that. I'm saying it. You have to ask yourself, without my influence, am I okay with that failure if it means I'm free from ever having to play that role again? Ever. And even if I was thinner, would I really want to play that role? Would I voluntarily play that role? Even if I was a thinner body, is that something I would want to promote?
No.
It has to come from your heart, not from the mind. Okay? There's a big difference between the feelings between the two. Your mind says, well, of course not. It sounds so terrible and immature. Well, what's your heart say? Even if you were handed a thinner body, knowing what you know about how it's impacted you, your mind, your soul, your life, your purpose, your focus, would you want to put thinnerness in a role of superiority? Even if you had it, would you play the role of superiority? Would you use it as your resume? I'm thin. Look at me. Right? Would you want to identify as a thin person? No. Would you give your body image that much power over your life? And you know what I mean when I say body image. I'm talking about thin image and fat image. It goes both directions. Do you really want to allow your body image to have that much influence over your life experience? Should it be the central battery that you believe gives you power? Or would you rather just not care about it either direction, not use it either direction, and always have a heart image as how you identify yourself? If you have a heart image of how you identify yourself, you realize that means that you have this freedom forever, as long as you have a heart image of who you are, regardless of thin supremacy or not, or thin supremacy and fat inferiority, right? If you have a heart image, does it really matter? And what happens to this access to the freedom you've been experiencing lately because you've put your thin supremacy on pause? Are you following me right now, or did I lose you?
Yeah, I am. I really, I'm really struck by the heart image.
Well, you've been able to live with this heart image since you've put body image on pause. And how do you like it?
I love it. I love that.
Well, it's truthful. You're telling the truth. It's actually real. It's like you're not pretending to be something you're not. You're actually living with your heart on the outside.
Yeah.
So I want you to imagine, even if you were thinner, if you ignore the thinnerness, if it does not become defining as you have created it to be, if you don't use it defining wise, if you become blind to it, as if that's just background noise, kind of like your whiteness, people who don't have, or your feminists, or your Americanism, do you wear that out like that's who I am?
Yeah, it's interesting. Because I in talking about it like this, I haven't really truly thought of myself as identifying that, but I have been.
Explain what you just said.
When I listen to hear you talk about thin supremacy, and I can relate to that, and but as being super important and foremost in my mind and consuming my day, and the goal, and that's what I make my goals and my resolutions and my every kind of whatever Lent has always been about those kind of goals. And it just never occurred to me that because it's going on in my head, I never really realized that that is what I've really made my life about, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at it in other ways, like, well, your whiteness is not a part, if you know, you don't identify it like that, or you don't identify it as being, you know what I mean? It's not my identification. It is my identification. And I just,
Thinness
the heart
is.
image versus that is striking to me.
Well, you can feel the difference because you've had the opportunity with this pause that you've given yourself since we started working to feel the difference. Yeah. Because you've given yourself grace temporarily. This is why it's not staying with you, is because when, it's like I'm giving you permission. I'm giving you guidance. Feel it this way, feel it that way, but you haven't really made it real for you. And I understand that. I've worked with enough people to know that at some point, if you want permanence, it has to become yours, not mine. It's not a recommendation for me. It's not something I'm trying to convince you to do. You have to really go inside and ask, am I willing to permanently surrender the thin supremacy and the fantasy and all of that and all of this bullshit that comes along with it for permanent freedom to just be real? Which means you're basically saying, am I willing to be a loser? Am I willing to be inferior to thin supremacy?
Yeah.
In order for me to be free from giving a shit. Because if you're okay with being a failure to thin supremacists, to being seen as a worthless piece of shit to people who think thin people are superior, who literally think when they walk in a room and see you're fatter, they think they're better than you. Okay? It's no different than someone who identifies as a white supremacist. They literally believe their whiteness is who they are and how they get their worth. What's the difference between white supremacy and thin supremacy? And because you're not, fat, or because you're not thin, you feel inferior. So the question is, but this inferiority, if you're okay with it, it means that you're free now to just identify from the quality of the heart that you bring to the table.
Yeah.
But you have to be okay with the people who really want you to be thin. You have to be okay with them going, we're really disappointed in you.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Did you see her? She is like overweight. I can't even believe she's getting married in her fatness.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? You're going to have to be okay that those people think you are inferior. But do they understand? And this is where you have to think for yourself. Do they understand how much suffering you did for their approval? And should anybody have to suffer to that degree for fleeting moments of superiority, which is all in your head anyways?
No.
Right? So do you really want the thinness if it comes with all of that baggage?
No.
Do you really want the grandeur of it if it comes with all the baggage? Because the grandeur is fleeting. It's in those moments, right? In your social environment where you feel like, I am the thinnest of them all.
Right.
That's a fleeting moment where people see your thinness and you go, yes, I'm winning. And then the food shows up and you're like, right? And you suffer. And everybody that goes, wow, she's thin. What do they do after they notice your thinness? What happens for them? They go off and have conversations with other people.
Yeah.
Right?
They don't care.
They don't give it. Because notice how the self-centeredism makes you think that they're constantly talking and thinking about you and how, oh my God, you won the night. Let's give her the gold crown of thin supremacy. She's a winner. No one really cares about you.
You know what? I'm going to make it my mantra. I'm a loser.
And I'm okay with it.
And I'm okay with it.
No, I live like that because there's so much judgment. People bring...
No, it helps. It does. It really helps.
Well, that's the question is you go into, am I okay if someone goes, oh my God, she is not thin. We knew she couldn't do it. We knew it was fake. She isn't like gold statue. We knew. Ha! We caught her in a lie.
Right.
Go into the embarrassment of people finding out. And then what? What happens the moment you're embarrassed? They find out. Do you need to have an excuse? Do you have to go, hold on, let me let you know why I'm not doing this so that I can get your approval still?
Yeah, let me let you know I'm still suffering. I'm suffering so much.
In my fatness, and I was miserable, and I'm addicted to food. That's the problem, right? Really? Is that real, or is that an excuse? I know it's not conscious. It's not a conscious excuse, but it certainly feels like a big roadblock. But the truth is that your thin supremacy is why you're trying to submit yourself to a third world environment of food, which is why you have such issues in the first world environment around you. So your impulsivity to overconsume isn't necessarily food addiction. It's the consequence of the thin supremacy addiction that requires that you suffer in restrictive food jail. You have to hide from food, which goes against yourself as a mammal. So you're taking this animal need for food and trying to restrict yourself from it, and then blaming the fact that you're binging on some like dopamine response.
Right.
It's just so short-sighted. It's like, get some perspective, people. Pull away. Give yourself some distance. But no one in there is questioning thin supremacy because it's been an overall unconsciously accepted dogmatic system. No one questions thin supremacy because we all would be accepted. We all would be seen as majestic. If you're fat, we do shun you. No one wants to be shunned. So these people who are trying to help you with your eating disorder truly believe in thin supremacy. They just don't know it. So they're not questioning your issues, trying to be thinner, because they want to be thinner too. And they love their thinnerness if they are. They love it. So I want you to really consider. If it means that you can permanently be truthful about who you are, would you be okay being seen as a failure to that system? Especially if it means that you never again have to leave this ease of being real and truthful. You live in this forever. If you could be okay losing the illusion of the self-righteous fantasy and losing the approval of the people who think you should be thin. Yeah. Because those are losses. You will lose thin supremacy grandeur.
Right.
But you lose the role. You lose the insanity. You lose the issues you have with food that you've been desperate to control. It just goes away. Have you noticed the years and years of work that you've done trying to get rid of your eating issues and how this doesn't require any control at all? It's just gone. They don't exist.
Yeah.
Notice the difference. So you can go back into the suffering for the thinness that you think is worth it. Is it really worth it?
No, it's not. It's not worth it.
Yeah, you need to speak from the heart. Is it really worth it? And the other side of it is, well, then is what I have really that bad? Think about that.
No, it's not.
Be truthful with yourself. Is it really that bad? Is the discomfort in a airplane seat, the discomfort that does exist, is that compared to the suffering of the thinness and what that entailed? Which one is actually worse? The physicality of being bigger, clothes being bigger, people judging you, embarrassment. Go into those feelings if you stayed this way forever and compare them to the insanity and the suffering that you lived in for decades, trying to be that thin idea of what you thought you were in your head. Which one is actually worse?
Yeah, it's definitely worse to put on the air and try to keep it together.
Yeah, your thin suit. You need to see it as like a costume. But this costume, in order for you to fit into it, requires that you starve yourself, isolate yourself, eliminate food. You can't enjoy yourself around food. Food is now an enemy. Food creates fear and anxiety, which is a fight or flight response. Food creates fight or flight. like it's a bear, right? You can go back into that. All for the pursuit of that thinness. Or you can bow out of it and say, I'd rather not. I'm willing to never experience that grandeur again.
Yeah.
I would rather be in a room, being truthful about who I am, and not really giving a shit about not only what everybody else thinks, but I shouldn't have to play the role to be valued. It shouldn't have to be fake. I shouldn't have to to such a strictness. And the strictness is what I think is so important. You shouldn't have to play a social role with such strictness to be seen as valuable.
Exactly.
So this is a choice you have to make. I can present it just like I have today, just like I have every time we've talked before.
Mm-hmm.
When you internalize this and go, I will never do that again. I don't have to do it again. I don't want to do it again. I would rather, you have to go in your head and really feel this out, breathe it out. What will your life be permanently if you never again pursue thinness? So you have to go into the risk of getting married fat, getting married in a fat dress. Being okay with people thinking, oh, how pathetic. This isn't a real wedding. Because only thin people have real weddings.
Yeah.
Never mind love. And the fact that it's unconditional. Never mind not being important. It's really about the conditions of her thin supremacy. That's what makes a real wedding.
Yeah.
So what happens when you present your love for this person and that's the focus of the marriage? Instead of, how do I look in my dress?
Exactly.
What will the experience of the heart-focused marriage be with people going, oh, it's too bad she's not thin? Because you know those people will be there.
For sure.
Because you've been one of them. You know that exists because you've thought that before. So you were one of them, okay? And those people do exist, and they're going to go, oh my God, this marriage is so shitty. And they're going to be so concerned about how they look. And, oh my God, I can't enjoy those wedding mints. Oh my God, if I eat a wedding mint, I can't even help myself. I need a wedding mint. Screw it. I should just eat the cake too. And their whole focus is just on how they're going to have to do a sugar detox next week.
Right.
They can have that, right? And guess what your focus gets to be?
On the wedding and on my sweetheart. On
the heart. And you're no longer ignorantly supporting thin supremacy by complying to it.
Right.
You know, the willingness to be at a size that thin supremacists say is worthy of hiding and shame and you just shouldn't get married till you're thin enough. You're actually going to promote unconditional love without needing and presenting it in a visible presentation, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
In a way to where it's evidence that you are happy and in love in a larger body. Because before, you were thinner and isolated and in love with your thinner body. Married to thinness.
Right.
Which one would you rather?
Yeah, I want unconditional love.
So go through it realistically in your head. Can you do that? Because
I can.
Once you do it realistically in your head instead of temporarily while I talk to Robin.
Right.
Once you do it realistically in your head, and any clients listening to this video will say that have done this, will agree. That's when you recover. It's not always in a conversation with me. These can be very powerful because I'm leading you to the door. Here's the exit. Get out. You don't have to stay in the cage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to be willing to leave what's in the cage behind.
Yes.
It can feel sad. It can feel like wasted time, wasted life. All this energy that should have a PhD and you have no PhD.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like the amount of money and time and effort and obsession that went into this should have some type of reward. But you know what? The reward is that you're done doing it. That you feel like you completed that You completed that task in this lifetime, and you can leave now and never return. You completed it. You learned your lesson. And you know what? The willingness to be in public in this body, and the willingness to be judged, the willingness to be seen as a loser, if you really don't care, you are now set free to be real.
Yeah.
Forever. For as long as you're okay with this. You know, you have
That's
to...
a gift.
That's your reward. That's like your certificate. Like, I completed that hell, Dante's Inferno, and I've now learned how to get out. The only reason why you held yourself in there is fear of what people think of you. In the want of the illusion that they approve of you from some condition. So if you just use your heart and allow people to naturally approve of you, and with that, you're willing to be judged and seen as a loser and a failure, you just got out of Dante's Inferno.
Right.
You'll never go back. So this temporary pause, you can make it permanent. You're the one that has to do it, though. I can't make you do it.
Yeah.
Because you have to be willing to lose on one hand. And you have to be willing to be a failure on the other.
Right.
You know? But one of them comes with suffering. And the pain of the failure on the other comes with freedom. From having to be a slave to anybody's opinion anymore about anything. That's the other cool part about this, is if you're okay with failure, with thin supremacy, which is a massive cultural paradigm.
Right.
Similar to Christianity, in rigidity, right? If you're willing to come out of the closet as an authentic being, whatever that is, your body is now set free to be a body. It's like all of a sudden the body can just do what it needs to do to keep you here. Its role changes. There's so much freedom that goes into this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome.
And if you're willing to be disproved of, if you're willing to tell the truth and willing to feel vulnerable to judgment, and you know those judgments exist because you used to be Miss Judgy McJudgerpants, right?
Right, exactly.
If you're willing to be judged by people that are suffering the way you did, right?
Right.
Because that's the truth. That means you can have compassion for why they're judging you. They have no idea how insane they are and how miserable they are. They're pursuing the illusion of this grandeur that they don't realize is just a fantasy. It doesn't even exist. They're living in horror, thinking that their horror will eventually get them freedom, and it doesn't work that way.
Right,
You know?
right.
So you can feel bad for them. Just feel like they'll figure it out someday. I had to suffer quite a bit for me to leave. And then to realize that once I left, the life is so easy. Doesn't have to be that hard. Doesn't have to be that insane. All right, I gotta go.
Okay. Thank you.